Lawrence Lau is an economist, best known for serving as Vice-Chancellor of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, and before that for his long academic career at Stanford University beginning in 1966. I spoke to Professor Lau in March 2020, near the start of the pandemic, to try and unpack what this means for our way of life, from the impact of local lockdowns to the disruption to global supply chains. Now he's collected those insights in this book, The COVID-19 Epidemic in China, which he co-authors with Yanyan. I'm James Chau. I sat down again with Professor Lau as the pandemic continues, which in some parts of the world only seems to be gathering pace. Professor Lawrence Lau, your book is important because it follows the timeline of the pandemic as it happened. Was it difficult, therefore, to keep up with the changes as the virus and its behavior also changed?
Well, I think you're right. But I think for China, it is fortunately is simple because, in February, I started looking at data. At the time, I actually predicted that it will end by the end of March. Actually ended at the end of March, right? But since then, China actually had managed extremely well, right? There's no second wave, no third wave. So it's complete here. But if you look at the other countries and regions, that's not the case.
What some people watching this will be confounded by is the fact that China managed to contain this and to stop this within a certain set of weeks, let's just say even a few months. What's the singular lesson for the other economies that are on life support now?
That's a very good question. I think let's start with what China did at the beginning, right? I think the most important thing and most decisive, and I think the boldest thing to do, is to blockade Wuhan. And the blockade was set on New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year's Eve. How important it is. I mean, whoever had the guts to order, let's blockade the city. That means no one could go home to spend Chinese New Year. So that is actually, I think, but that is the single most important decision.
It's much more than just culture. For millions of workers, this is their one chance a year, maybe, to go home.
Exactly. But that actually saved them.
Could you just share with us what it's like now to live in Hong Kong, in different cities in mainland China? How far have they moved on from, say, January, February, March?
I actually have one observation. I think that these epidemics are here to stay. If not this one, there will be another one, right? And vaccines, they might only be effective for one. They may not be effective for the next one. It's just like a flu vaccine. We take flu shots every season, right? It changes. Well, last year's vaccine is not good for this year's. And this year's won't be good for next year. And so even if we have a vaccine against this year's COVID-19, maybe next year we have a different one. So my point is that being careful and practicing good hygiene is the new normal.
Well, I have to say that even though we're speaking now without masks, when you came into the room, you wouldn't shake hands. You have adopted a new form of greeting, which is pretty Chinese anyway.
This is the old form of greeting.
So we go back to our culture for best practices.
Why not? I told someone that you really should not be kissing and hugging anymore. Really, right? Especially, with people you don't know well, right? But even people you know well, that is actually very risky. So, so a lot of people are unhappy with me for saying something like that. Okay, now if you're in the same household, do whatever you want, it's not going to make a difference. But for people who haven't seen, for weeks, it's very risky. And I think especially older people are particularly vulnerable, especially if they live in an elderly home. Entire elderly home would be wiped out. No, it's not necessary, because all you take is one infection, and it could infect everybody.
I'm James Chau. You're watching The China Current. Follow us on social media @The China Current.